I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com. Sorry. That a bit creepy?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far. It is cold.
Cold. Not able for this cold.
No.
Do you think I'll ever be able to live in the sun for the winter?
Like, I don't know why. Like John Gilligan or something. Well, possibly.
Yeah. How come he can do it?
I don't know.
John Gilligan can do it and I can't.
Yeah.
It's not fair. Anyway, sorry, just a little aside. We're going to talk about Derek Bottler Devoy. Like, you know, this story paints him out to be the tough guy he is, right?
Yeah.
But before we tell it, I have to say to you that before he ever went to prison,
Yeah.
he had €100,000 seized from him.
That's right.
Did I ever tell you this?
No, well, yeah.
By the Criminal Assets Bureau. And he was back to kind of challenge it, I think.
Yeah.
And it was when the cab cases were in the old courts, the High Court, right? So I was covering it at the time. And I went in, there was a load of different things up that day. And anyway, then in comes Bottler Devoy with his mother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they sat over sort of beside me, and as only your mother could, we all have one like this, she started nudging him and going, "There's Nicola Tallant." Right?
Yeah.
So he's trying to be super tough and, you know, shut up, ma, sort of thing. And she keeps nudging him and nudging him and nudging him and look at her. Eventually I said, "Hello, Mrs. Devoy." Well. And she said, "I always knew you were a nice girl."
Yeah, well, maybe
and he was just like throwing a massive reddener and he couldn't get her out.
She won't by the end of this podcast. Maybe you'll be...
She couldn't. I just thought it was so funny because really, like, you know, no matter how tough you are, your mother can still take you down a peg or two, can't they?
They can.
So tell me about Derek Bottler Devoy over the last few weeks.
Well, I think he probably is a tough guy.
Yeah.
Once his mother isn't in the room. His name popped up. It's actually an horrific video. We'll play it now for people on YouTube.
Let's play it now.
Oh no. Getting milling him. Oh, they're going again. He's on the ground again. What the fuck? There's Bottler. He's at the horn. He's at the break in his leg or something. Yeah, he's at the break in his leg. Fucking easy. You on. Look at Bottler at the door. I'd say Bottler's there. Get off this landing.
So what you're seeing there is there's two guys fighting in a cell in Portlaoise prison.
Yeah.
And there's a guy in a cell across the landing is taking a video of it. The two guys fighting are both on remand for murders. We can't get into them for legal reasons. But like, it looks very, very violent.
And it's disturbing, I think, really, because any of those prison attacks, you're so restricted in your movement. You're confined. You could so easily be killed in prison because you can't run, you can't get away. You know what I mean? You're obviously relying on the prison officers to come or somebody to come to stop this.
Exactly. And you know these people are dangerous.
Exactly,
given the nature of where they are. So you see Bottler Devoy arrives at the end and the guy says, look at Bottler at the door, and basically he's going to tell your man to get off the landing.
Yeah.
And as soon as Bottler arrives, it comes to an end, and you know, sources told us eventually that he kind of acted as a bit of a peacemaker. But you can see, you know, he is a figure of authority on that landing, which is C4 in Portlaoise prison.
So they're waiting for Bottler to show up.
Yeah,
how did Bottler become a figure of authority on the landing? I mean, I know he's a tough guy and everything, but life had gone very chaotic for him before he actually ended up in prison.
Yeah, I mean, he was always regarded as being one of the most dangerous people in the north of Dublin, right back to the 2000s.
Volatile,
genuinely dangerous, capable of violence, reckless, but also, he grew up in Ballymun, had been involved in crime from a very early age. His brother as well, Michael Devoy, but better known as Mad Mickey, was also a similar character. And he probably started appearing in the newspapers back in the early 2000s because he was involved in this really, really serious feud that went on in the Ballymun area went on for years and years and years. It involved, ultimately, witnesses in court cases were getting armed protection. There was armed officers outside the houses. It had started over, I think it was meant to have, the rumours were always that it started over a row over a wheelie bin. I mean, it was something really, really simple like that, but it led to, threats, attacks on homes, shots fired. Ultimately, nobody died, and it was just really a matter of luck. So Bottler was one of the guys driving that, and he was regarded as being, he served a couple of sentences in connection with that feud back in the 2000s. On one occasion, he was involved in a drive-by shooting. He was identified by a witness. He he had a scarf over his face. He was in the back of a car and shot at one of his rivals. He was also caught with a gun on another occasion. But he was always a feared person.
Yeah, he was. But he was one of those slightly out of control characters that would have been known to, you could offer him a few bob and he would commit or do most things. He was not heading up an organised crime group. There was very little organisation to what he did. He was dipping into a bit of this, dipping into that, and had no major loyalties. Was sort of a bit of a lone wolf character.
Yes.
I see him a little bit like Robert Rue Redmond, a little bit like one of those characters that, is feared, of course, because he's a bit crazy.
He's a bit crazy, and he certainly had lots of associations with criminals there. On one occasion, he was caught with a very infamous fingless criminal called David Sauce Mulvey, who was a proper organised criminal. But Bottler, exactly, he would have been a loose cannon who would have been hired for stuff. He wouldn't have been seen as being disciplined enough to be involved in a organised crime gang, though he was certainly also involved in the drugs business. And as you said, he was caught with 100 grand in a bank account, and that wasn't he didn't get that from doing mixers.
Yeah, now so things go really, really chaotic in Bottler Devoy's world in the aftermath of two things happening. Firstly, his brother is shot dead.
Yes.
Amidst the Hutch Kinahan feud.
Well, it was probably preceding that, because what happened was Greg Lynch had been shot outside a pub in Cabra, shot in the face, a non-fatal shooting. I mean, obviously shooting somebody in the face, well, you're very, very lucky to survive. At that point, Greg Lynch, who was a nephew of Gerard Hatchett Kavanagh, was very much seen as being associated with the Kinahan organisation. Was
seen as one of their big salesmen.
Yeah, one of their big street dealers. Really was controlling a network of street dealers. He'd also served a lengthy sentence for heroin dealing. But Greg Lynch was a very connected criminal figure. Grew up in Oliver Bond, had known the Kinahans all his life, and was lucky to survive. And in whatever way, the blame came back on Mickey Devoy, Bottler's brother, who was also equally erratic, violent and dangerous, and he was blamed. And the word went around, obviously initially through the criminal underworld, but even towards the guards as well. So that the word went around, and it was Mad Mickey behind this. And a number of months later, he was shot dead in Tala. He was shot
just as he got out of prison.
Yes,
he was killed. Now, subsequent to all of that, it got really murky. Yeah, because it emerged, or it would do in the years to come, that actually Greg Lynch had been shot, probably by his own. And it might have had to do with a relationship he had with a woman.
Yeah.
Connected to one of the senior members of the Kinahan cartel, who was notoriously protective of her and notoriously able to react should he have heard anything. in 2017, his sister Antoinette was out in the house in Ballymun when 2 gunmen arrived and she and her friend Clinton Shannon were shot dead. They went to murder Derek Bottler Devoy. He had arrived at the house and had managed to escape out the back. So it's very unusual for a woman, or rather more unusual for a woman to be caught up in that kind of a situation. Antoinette, I think, was a mother of 5 and her own daughter was there and witnessed it. In the aftermath of that, the Kinahan organisation are understood to have gone to Bottler Devoy, to have named the 2 shooters they said had carried that out, and they had armed him up.
Yeah, because it was a very confusing story, I suppose. But ultimately, one of the suspects for the shooting of Antoinette was a guy called Jason Buddha Molyneux.
An associate of the Hutch organisation.
He would have been an associate of the Hutch organisation. He was also rumoured to have been involved in other shootings and had been linked to various shootings on behalf of the Hutch organisation, I suppose you could broadly say it, but really he was kind of a freelance operator.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think it's probably, that was the case. He was a freelance operator and he was,
personally
taking on jobs for money. He lived within the area and had grown up with a lot of kind of associates of the Hutch organisation, the younger crew.
So the Kinahans told Bottler Devoy this, identified him.
Because bear in mind, it was 2017 and most of the Kinahan murders were conducted during 2016. By 2017, they were randomly trying to basically take a shot at whoever they could get near. There had also been the shutdown of a lot of their professional hit teams. A lot of them had been taken off the streets. I'm going to say by about 2017, the Gardaí were able to announce that they had 70 members of the Kinahan organisation behind bars, either awaiting trial or having been convicted or pleading guilty. So there was, a kind of a skilled hitman was in, wasn't exactly, there was a finite number of them left on the ground. And the Kinahan organisation saw what had happened to Bottler Devoy's sister Antoinette and the character that Bottler Devoy was as an opportunity to take out what they would, or what would be perceived to be, a member of the Hutch crew.
Yes, and also it was kind of regarded as they didn't have to hire Bottler, but they had to make logistics and weapons available to him.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Jason Buddha Molyneux would ultimately be shot dead, but and also other people that were very close to Jason Buddha Molyneux, including Derek Coakley Hutch, was also shot dead, and Bottler was in the frame for being involved in these. But it wasn't regarded that the Kinahans had hired him. It was regarded really that they made the logistics and the weapons available to him. And in particular, it was said that it was a move by Bomber Kavanagh, who sort of took that on board.
He saw it as he was playing a game of chess at that point. He was trying to, move and get in with one person so he could use them, because his organisation was under so much stress from the level of surveillance they were under and the losses they've had. Now, Devoy would later claim that it was his guilt over the sister's murder, Antoinette's murder, that was the straw that broke the camel's back and led to him having some sort of a breakdown, because in 2019 he had a situation that he was seen with this semi-automatic shotgun, is that right? And,
no, it was a submachine gun. Yeah.
Oh, and a grenade.
And a grenade. Yeah. So he'd been floating around Ballymun basically with this openly. I think there was videos going around at the time. It wasn't some sort of master criminal plot.
No.
He was openly going around. I think he fired a couple of shots in the air. The guards came to subdue him, and I think he unpinned a grenade at one point.
In the bathroom, in a small little bathroom, yes.
Yeah. So he was obviously had some sort of breakdown at this stage, but extremely dangerous. It was, I think, the guards who arrived at the scene, one of them received the bravery medal because the grenade had been unpinned and could have led to a massive loss of life.
When the army bomb disposal unit came, that this grenade was floating around the ground after he was eventually sort of placated and brought out. And when they set it off in a safe environment. It did blow up the bathroom and the whole back of that house.
Yeah,
Like,
and
this
the
was
neighbours,
serious.
like a
So
neighbour.
where was he getting that from? Do you remember?
No, well, I mean, I don't know if it was known, but it was believed that
Yeah.
these things were being supplied by the Kinnan network one way or another. They wanted to use him, obviously, to take out the more dangerous figures. I mean, Jason Mulnew, who was shot dead in that case, remains unsolved. But he was one of the more dangerous young men that were associated with the Hutch organised crime group, even though he wasn't clearly a member. So these people were prime targets, and it would allow people like the elimination of people like him allowed the Kinnans really to have a good bit of strength in that North Inner City area.
Devoy was ultimately sentenced to 17 years in prison, with the final 2 suspended. So he has gone down to Portlaoise, where he has obviously gathered himself.
Yes.
And amongst the population down there, become king of the wing.
He's become one of the kings of the wing. There's various wings, obviously. There's different landings. And they nearly always have a kind of a top dog or a couple of top dogs. We always think of all of these people as being the Kinnan wings or whatever, but it's often far more complicated than that. But he has become one of these figures of respect within that wing, and you can hear it there in a video. Obviously the prison.
So the footage is obviously being examined by the Irish Prison Services, right?
Yeah.
You can garner that little bit of intel out of it. I'm sure the prison service know who's in charge on the wings or who has the respect or whatever. But from that little bit of footage, you can see that he's in charge. He's the one that comes in and shuts it down and says no. So who took the video?
Well, we don't know because.
And how sensible was it to do that?
Well, it definitely was. It definitely wasn't sensible because, and it's not great quality so you can see, not to be crude about it, most of the phones in there are kind of old Nokia style devices that are small that can be gotten in because they can be gotten in.
How can they be gotten in?
Well, one would leave that up to one's imagination, but you can hear your man's voice on it, and at one point there's some guy walks in front of him, he says, "Get out of the way." Yeah. So I mean,
so at least what we know is it's not the guy who walks in front of it, and it's not Bottler videoing. So they're the only ones that are.
But I mean, you don't have to be a mastermind, I think, to work out where it's shot from and who it's likely to be. But yeah, it's an interesting little clip because it gives you an insight into the world that those people are living in. Whatever has sparked that fight, it probably doesn't amount to too much, but somebody, if you see the level of violence there, somebody could have been killed, I
tell you now, it would have all stopped fairly quickly had his mother arrived.
It would have, and I wonder will she be as nice to you the next time she sees you.
Very pleasant woman, I have to say. All right, Niall, thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.